Hey everyone, before you settle in, hit that like button only if you genuinely enjoy medieval misery served with a cozy yawn. Tap subscribe if you've ever wondered how history could double as a lullaby, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Bonus points for your current time zone because I love seeing who's up at 3 a.m. with me. Now dim the lights, let a sleepy fan hum in the background, and let's walk, well, flutter, into a job so thankless it makes plague doctoring look like a spa day: being a medieval messenger pigeon. Picture the scene. A dawn mist clings to a drafty stone tower somewhere in Normandy. Your tiny, feather-wrapped heart is thumping like a blacksmith's hammer. You, yes you, are a bird bred for one purpose: deliver words faster than a galloping horse, cheaper than a courier, and ideally without dying in mid-air. Romantic, right? Wait, let's be clear. No one asked the pigeons if they fancied this career path. A dovecote owner simply scooped up hatchlings and decided, "Congratulations, you're now the medieval internet." Unlike knights who chose glory, or at least shiny helmets, messenger pigeons never got a recruitment speech. They were born, tagged, tossed into wicker baskets, and carted off to castles. Training began early. Handlers removed food for a day, let hunger gnaw at the bird's belly, then released it from several miles away so it would bolt back to the dovecote where dinner waited. Motivation? Starvation. It worked, mostly because pigeons are hardwired to home, but also because medieval animal welfare wasn't exactly a TED Talk topic. Let's talk gear. You, feathered friend, carry no sword, no scroll case gilded in gold. Instead, a sliver of parchment gets rolled into a tube the size of a quill cap, tied to your leg with thread, or jammed into a crude bone cylinder. That scrap might hold troop positions, ransom demands, or a king's love note to his mistress. Yet it weighs almost nothing. Perfect, right? Except the added weight throws off your balance. Imagine running a marathon in brand new shoes filled with pebbles. Fun, no? Now factor in weather. Because you fly, you face every medieval sky demon. Summer heat turns you into feathery bacon. Winter winds slice straight through downy fluff. Rainstorms? Think of them as tiny hammers pounding your wings. Snow? Frozen head-on collisions with flakes large enough to make you cough. Yes, pigeons can cough in their own bird way. And don't forget hawks, falcons, and bored noble children with slingshots. You're not just a messenger, you're the main course at every predator buffet. The route isn't a leisurely glide over quaint villages. It's a frantic zigzag through smoky air. Castles burned dung for warmth. Peasants burned whatever they found. Result? Choking haze. You inhale soot, flap through it, then almost collide with a cathedral spire because medieval architects loved spikes. Somehow you dodge, but hold on. Sunlight flashes off a helmed soldier drilling below, momentarily blinding you. One twitch of your wing and whoosh! A falcon dives. Talons scrape your tail feathers. Heart in beak, you bank hard, clipping a thatch roof. Congratulations, you almost invented avian stunt flying. Still alive? Great. Now let's peek inside your biological dashboard. A pigeon's wing beats up to 6 times a second. That's 360 flaps per minute. Each one drains calories faster than a monk drains ale on feast day. Your handler did feed you before launch, a handful of cracked barley, and maybe, if he felt generous, a few peas. Burn rate? gone in the first mile. Now you're running on fumes, and the note tied to your ankle suddenly feels like an iron shackle. Thirst hits next. Rivers glint beneath you, but pigeons can't land easily on choppy surfaces. Barrels of rainwater on rooftops look tempting, but landing means lingering, which means death from cats, hawks, or the inevitable kid with a rock. So you keep flying, mouth, beak, dry as parchment. Meanwhile, the sun climbs. Feathers absorb heat like black fabric on asphalt. Your internal thermostat climbs. In modern labs, overheating pigeons reach lethal temperatures in under an hour. Medieval science didn't care. Result? Many a message landed alongside a baked bird. Let's pause the pain and peek at the bigger system. In the 12th century, Crusader states in the Levant relied on pigeons to relay news of Saracen raids. Saladin himself reportedly used birds to coordinate troop movements. Europe's merchant republics, Venice, Genoa, Bruges, they all raced information on grain prices via feathers. If your pigeon arrived first, you bought cheap wheat, sold high, and retired rich. If it died en route, sorry, bankruptcy beckoned. So yes, economics perched on your flimsy frame. But the system had flaws. Messages weren't coded often. Why bother? Birds always go straight home, except when they don't. Crosswinds push you miles off course. A shiny slate roof confuses your brain's built-in compass. You land on a stranger's dovecote, exhausted. Peasant kids find the scroll, read troop counts aloud, and suddenly your side's ambush is common gossip. Worse, enemy falconers deliberately released raptors to intercept. Think of it as medieval cyber hacking. Steal the packet, own the intel. Falcon catches pigeon. Handler reads note, changes battlefield plans, sends his own pigeon back. Meanwhile, your limp body is plucked for a stew. If by miracle you reach your destination, what's the reward? A coup of mild applause? Maybe some seeds? You're shoved back into a hutch, ready for the return trip. There's no spa, no medal, not even a decent bath. Bird baths existed, but not in war zones. Stress hormones keep coursing through your veins. Birds under chronic stress develop feather plucking, tremors, and heart disease. Not that medieval keepers knew or cared. You were disposable tech. Let's zoom in to one particular campaign, the Siege of Acre, 1191. Richard the Lionheart needed updates from scouts outside the city walls. Enter messenger pigeons, released at dawn with tiny slivers describing breaches and fortifications. Saladin's forces answered with hawks, trained to snatch pigeons mid-air. Reports describe birds raining down like confetti. Some crusados strapped miniature tubes of Greek fire, primitive napalm, to their pigeons. The idea, if captured, the tube ignites, destroying the message. Reality? Many birds exploded prematurely, turning the sky into a grim fireworks display. Imagine flapping for your life while your leg literally smokes. Good times. Then there's weather forecasting, or lack thereof. You're released under clear skies, but medieval forecasts basically relied on red sky at morning, sailor take warning, which fails halfway often. 2 hours in, thunderclouds build, lightning dazzles, updrafts toss you like a rag. Rain mats feathers, doubling your weight. Downdrafts slam you toward the black forest canopy full of wolves, because apparently wolves love pigeon snacks too. Land? No. You fight on, but every flap now feels like swimming in mud. A branch grazes your belly, tearing skin. Infection risk skyrockets. Antibiotics won't exist for 7 centuries. If you heal, scar tissue stiffens, hindering flight forever. One storm can end your career. But hey, maybe you're among the elite, a royal pigeon housed at the Tower of London. Perks? Architectural view, less chance of starting. Downside? You live in proximity to execution sites. Stress pheromones saturate the air. Also, royal rivals sabotage birds. In 1324, Isabella of France allegedly bribed a keeper to slip powdered glass into rival dovecote's grain. Birds bled internally and died mid-flight. Vet care? Sprinkle holy water, say a prayer, and fetch replacement birds from the market down the street. Speaking of markets, let's address stolen identity. Pigeons look alike. Unscrupulous merchants dyed feathers with walnut juice to claim rival birds as their own. Owners recognized birds by leg bands, tiny copper rings, but thieves swapped those too. Result, misinformation tornado. A burgundy-dyed pigeon lands, you assume message is legit, act on it, lose cash, someone else rakes profit. Medieval SEC investigation? Non-existent. What about nights? You'd think handlers avoided launching after dusk, but desperate times call for stupid measures. Lantern light confuses pigeon navigation, which relies partly on sun position. So nighttime runs often ended with birds spiraling silly circles until sunrise. Owls, bats, and ghost stories filled that dark. Many pigeons simply perched, messages delayed, commanders furious. Some strapped glowworms in gauze to the bird's leg for navigation. Turns out, a glowing ankle is perfect target practice for archers. Oops. And diseases, don't forget those. Pigeons carry paramyxovirus, trichomoniasis, salmonella. Medieval folks didn't know pathogens, but they knew sudden bird die-offs. Cures? Burn sulfur in the dovecote, fumigate with pitch smoke, sometimes suffocating healthy birds. Or apply leeches to a bird's neck. Yes, leeches. Imagine standing still while a slimy worm gorges on your vein, then immediately being thrown into the sky to deliver a time-sensitive memo. Let's not skip reproduction. Breeders forced birds to mate strategically. Pigeon romance? Non-existent. Handlers paired champion males with multiple females, stealing eggs to foster underbroody hens, ensuring more careers. Any chick too scrawny became dinner. Waste not, want not. Those that thrived were weaned, wing-clipped for initial training, then thrust into the brutal cycle. Life expectation in wild pigeons today? Up to 15 years. Medieval messenger? Lucky to last 2. Most perished in their first campaign. Now, emotional toll on humans. Yes, humans actually bonded with these birds. Some knights carved tiny wooden perches adorned with crests, claiming favorite pigeons as omens. If the bird returned swiftly, battle would be won. If it died, morale plummeted. One chronicle tells of Sir Hugo de Lacy refusing to charge because Snowwing never came back. His commander forced him forward anyway, and Hugo indeed died. Superstition cemented. From then on, commanders sent decoy pigeons first just to test fates. Great for human anxiety, catastrophic for pigeons. That brings us to our favorite metric, failure consequences. A lost scroll wasn't just a shrug. If you carried the only copy of siege plans and vanished, hundreds could die. Some generals pre-wrote execution orders for pigeon keepers in case of loss. Lose 3 birds in a row? Enjoy the stocks. 6? Maybe the gallows. So keepers doubled down on training cruelty, tossing birds farther and farther until half never returned. That's like punishing your Wi-Fi router by smashing it when the signal drops. Satisfying in anger, but ultimately self-defeating. Food quality? Seed mix often molded in damp castle basements. Mold produces aflatoxins, liver-destroying. Birds developed lethargy, convulsions, sudden death. Keepers called it the stillness. Solution? Add more moldy grain because maybe they were just hungry. If birds slowed, keepers plucked flight feathers from one wing to force regrowth, believing fresh feathers equal vigor. The result was asymmetry, pain, and sometimes hemorrhage. Let's zoom back to you, our heroic bird, finally diving toward home. The dovecote roof sports a slit barely wider than your wingspan. Miss and you bounce off wooden planks into the moat below. But you nail it. Whew! You flap down the ramp, note intact. The keeper grabs you roughly, unties the thread, squints at the writing, Latin scribbles he can't read, and scurries off to the Lord's Hall. You? Thrown back into a coop already crammed with 20 panting birds. Water dish is filthy, seed tray empty. You collapse, chest heaving, while above, stable boys giggle about your bedraggled state. Feast day fireworks boom later, startling you into panicked wing thrashing that bloodies your wingtips on rough slats. And still, dawn will come. The wicker basket will creak open, and some sweaty lad will pluck you again, muttering about fresh orders to York. No days off, no union, no hope, but plenty of viewers at home, cuddled under blankets, ready to drift to sleep, hearing how your life was endless terror disguised as noble service. The dovecote is still shaking from yesterday's chaos when the handler slides open the hatch at dawn. No pre-flight pep talk, just a grunt, a draft of cold air, and a rough fist that plucks you from a tangle of restless wings. You barely have time to ruffle your feathers before he's fastening a new sliver of parchment to your ankle, cinching the leather strip a little too tight because who has time for finesse when a baron's patience is thinner than his treasury? You try to flex your talons, the circulation stings, but that's tomorrow you's problem. Right now, breakfast is a memory. The sky is flickering pink, and somebody needs a message delivered faster than rumor travels through a tavern. Out on the roof ledge, the world smells of damp hay, wood smoke, and the sweet, acrid perfume of yesterday's battlefield pyres. Always a nice bouquet to launch into. The handler doesn't even bother with a gentle toss. He simply flings you up like a sling stone, and gravity does the rest. Your wings snap open, feathers catching the first icy thermals, heart slamming 600 beats a minute as the dovecote shrinks beneath you. Down below, stable boys cheer. One wagers a copper that you won't make it past the city gate. How encouraging. You bank hard to the right because pigeons trust instinct over landmarks, but instinct doesn't account for the brand new scaffolding on the cathedral spire. The carpenters painted it bright red, which your bird brain, attuned to predators, interprets as giant hawkmouth, turn. You swerve, grazing a pennant so closely you shred 3 primaries. They'll grow back, if you live. Air whips through the tears, whistling like a banshee in your ear holes. Lovely soundtrack for the miles ahead. Let's zoom ground level for a second. Messenger infrastructure looks romantic in illuminated manuscripts. Tiny towers, tidy lofts, devoted keepers feeding birds from golden trays. Reality? Picture a wooden shed slapped against a castle wall, lined with filthy straw, the floor caked in guano thick enough to fossilize a boot heel. Water crocks are refilled once a day if it's not freezing. Otherwise, birds sip condensation from moldy beams. Disease ricochets through the flock. Pigeonpox blotches beaks. Canker clots throats with yellow slime. And an outbreak of what the monks call the falling sickness makes birds convulse until they snap their own necks. A single sick pigeon can wipe out an entire message network faster than an enemy siege engine. But the Baron still wants his news, so keepers practice medieval biosecurity. Torch the corpses, sweep ashes into the moat, sprinkle handfuls of blessed salt, and hope for the best.
Back in the sky, you're pushing northwest toward a fortress perched on a chalk cliff. The parchment on your leg? A list of ransom figures. How much silver the Baron demands for that unlucky earl he snatched last week. The sum is big enough to purchase a small kingdom, or at least a year's worth of imported wine. The Earl's family will read this note, gasp, haggle, then tie a reply to your, or some other, bird's leg and whip it back. The faster you fly, the sooner that hostage Earl either goes free or goes headless. No pressure.
Half a league in, clouds thicken into a blotchy gray ceiling. Moisture beads on your feathers, turning sleek aerodynamics into wet corduroy. Wing beats slow, drag increases. Down below, hedgerows curve like labyrinth walls, but you can't land there, too many foxes. Then the smell hits. A rank mixture of tallow smoke and charred bone, drifting from a plague pyre in the next village. Humans huddle indoors, doors barred. Cats and rats scurry through alleys. Overhead, you're just another speck in the gloom, but pathogens swirl upward in the smoke. Bird flu? Not yet a concept, but you inhale spores anyway. Your immune system groans. Remember yesterday's shredded tail feathers? They matter now. Each wobble hemorrhages energy. You scan instinctively for an updraft to ride. One arrives, warm air rising off a peat bog. And for a glorious 60 seconds, you glide, heart rate easing. The bog stinks like rotten eggs, but hey, gratis lift. Then a hawk's screech rips the dawn. Predators love hunting along thermals. You juke left, drop altitude, wings aching. The hawk dives, banking tighter than you can. Its shadow flits over your back, talons slashing empty air inches above your spine. You feel the air pressure change. That's how close death is. You barrel roll, yes, pigeons can, sacrificing more precious height, and slip beneath a row of oaks. The hawk can't follow into the tangle. Victory? Pyrrhic. You're now flying treetop level, where branches leap out like spear points. One whacks your wingtip, spinning you sideways. You recover, panting, but the jolt snaps the thread holding the parchment. The message tube clatters down through leaves, bounces off bark, lands somewhere in a pigsty. Ground disaster. Message lost means mission failure, means your handler's head may be on a chopping block, means the Earl might die, means you're suddenly an expensive but useless bird. Could you go back? Homing instinct says no. Once launched, route is one way. Also, pigsty hawks, pigsty dogs, pigsty pigs, he'll eat anything. You grit beak, angle skyward, and push on, wrestling panic. But the job's not totally hopeless. Medieval pigeon corps had a redundant trick, double dipping. Every important missive was copied onto two birds. Unknown to you, your loft mate left minutes after you, carrying the same numbers. Hopefully, her flight path avoided hawks and pigsties. Redundancy is nice, unless you're the expendable copy.
Time to address our feather technology. Medieval breeders prized birds with iridescent green necks, broad chests, and a streak of white flight feathers. They believed these features signaled speed and stamina. Selective breeding, century after century, produced avian athletes. But genetics is messy. For every champion, dozens hatched with crooked beaks or mismatched wings. Those became pie filling or pottage protein for peasants. Efficiency, medieval style. If you can't carry my secrets, at least satisfy my stomach. Speaking of stomachs, let's talk digestion mid-flight. Pigeons store grain in a crop pouch that slowly releases food into the gizzard. Stress accelerates digestion. A startled bird can literally defecate its breakfast within minutes. Helpful for weight reduction, less helpful for energy. By mile 5, you're on fumes again. Normally you'd land near berry bushes, but wild berries today are shriveled from frost. So you keep flapping, eyes scanning for barn rooftops where spilled grain might sit in gutters. A miracle. Ahead, a granary with open windows. You swoop inside, frantically peck at kernels stuck between planks. But rats emerge, beady eyes, yellow teeth. You bolt, a kernel still clamped in beak, gulping it mid-air like a soldier shoving bread between sword swings. That granary? Controlled by the very noble family expecting your message. Irony, you're almost there. The cliff-top fortress rises like a stone fist from the fog, banners snapping. One final obstacle, coastal winds. Gales whip up from the sea, smashing into the chalk face, ricocheting skyward. Updrafts can fling an unwary pigeon hundreds of feet off course. Veteran birds learn to spiral in tight fishhook patterns, sneaking through eddies. You attempt the maneuver, but fatigued muscles tremble. The wind snatches you sideways, slamming you into the cliff. A puff of feathers plumes. Dazed, you cling to a rocky nub. Far below, surf crashes, a watery grave. Your left wing throbs. Maybe it's bruised, maybe fractured. Flight seems impossible. Yet the dovecote is so close, you can smell barley mash. You rest 30 seconds. No more. Predators patrol cliffs too. Then you push off, wings protesting, but air cushions you. Each beat is agony, yet altitude grows. The fortress wall looms, crenels like shark teeth. Soldiers patrol with crossbows. They're jittery. Siege rumors abound. One spots you, lifts his bow. No, wait, he lowers it, sees the leg band. You angle toward the rooftop loft. At last, you dive into the entry slit, skidding across straw, colliding with another pigeon who curses in coos. Home. Inside, the keeper rushes, scanning your ankles. No message tube. His face drains. Somewhere behind you, your cohort bird flutters in, scroll intact. Relief washes over his features. Condemnation returns to you. He lifts you, prods the bruised wing, sniffs your singed feather tips, mutters something about useless clump of lice. You expect punishment, but another thought crosses his mind. Breeding. Even battered birds with strong homing instinct are valuable broodstock. So instead of the chopping block, you're shuffled into a quieter coop, paired with a hen you've never met.
Romance is a luxury, but at least there's food. Let's pan out. Across Europe, pigeon networks knit kingdoms together. The Hanseatic League relied on birds to price Baltic herring. In Moorish Spain, rulers used pigeons with silk leg tubes that bore tiny rubies identifying owner and origin, early brand logos. The Mongols? They skipped pigeons, preferring horse relays, but traded for Chinese birds anyway, to eat. Cultural variance, you see. By late 13th century, northern Italian bankers realized pigeons could beat horseback couriers during wartime when roads clogged with soldiers. So they built signal chains, Verona to Milan, Milan to Genoa. One banker calculated profits soared 20% when his birds arrived an hour before rivals. Those numbers funded cathedrals, wars, and yes, more dovecotes. Capitalism feather-powered. Of course, sabotage escalated. Venetian spies bought barrels of predatory owls, released them along pigeon corridors. Florentines retaliated by launching kites, actual kites, wood and canvas gliders, designed to spook raptors so pigeons could slip through. Early air defense systems. Meanwhile, in England, Edward I decreed that any subject shooting a royal pigeon would lose an ear. Poachers still aimed. Ears heal. A pigeon feast is forever. Back to you. Weeks pass. Wing heels crooked. High-performance days are gone. You graduate to short-range errands, maybe carrying love notes between noble quarters of the same castle. Safer? Marginally. Yet even castle courtyards harbor terrors. A mastiff breaks its chain, lunges, snaps jaws inches from your tail. Kitchen maids chase you because droppings spoil laundry. One novice monk swears you're possessed. He tries to exorcise you with holy water. You tolerate indignities because retirement options are limited. Stew pot or taxidermy. Winter closes in. Feeding costs rise. The steward audits birds. Only the swiftest stay. You're tagged blue chalk, expendable. But fate intervenes. The Baron's youngest daughter, a shy girl named Agnes, visits the loft seeking feathers for quills. She notices your crooked wing, pities your tremor, and sneaks you crumbs each evening. Bond forged. One night, avalanches of snow isolate the fortress. Messenger lines break. Agnes's mother falls ill. Herbs needed from a distant abbey. Soldiers can't ride. The mountain pass is buried. The steward eyes the remaining pigeons. Agnes pleads for your chance. Keeper scoffs. That cripple, he'll freeze before the gate. Agnes insists. Her tearful gaze trumps his pragmatism. You're fitted with a scrap, asking monks for feverfew, thyme, and willow bark. Released into a blizzard. Cold slices like glass shards. Snowflakes blind. But you, old veteran, know updraft patterns, cavern hideouts, even chimney clusters throwing warm up swirls. You chart a staggered course, short leaps, rooftop respites, gulping meltwater, snatching breadcrumbs from abandoned market stalls. Hours drag, but at dusk, abbey bells toll ahead. Monks spot you, read message, dispatch a younger, swifter bird back while they prepare herbs. You collapse in their loft, body temperature dangerously low. A novice wraps you in wool, sets you near the bread oven. Heat seeps in. You live. Back at the fortress, Agnes receives the herbs within the day. Her mother recovers. The Baron, softened, orders a gilt leg band for you, inscribed Fortis, Latin for brave. You won't race far again, but you'll preside as patriarch of new clutches, your genes enshrined. A rare happy ending in a profession littered with feathers and regrets. And there you have it, the grinding reality of medieval airmail. Hunger motivation, disease roulette, predator ambush, human greed, and the occasional miracle sparked by compassion. Still think your inbox is stressful? Try dodging hawks with a ransom note tied to your ankle. The next dawn begins with a muffled boom that rattles every dovecote shutter for 10 kilometers. The sound of the siege cannons at Longford Keep testing their barrels. Stone shot slams against the curtain wall, shaking tiles from village roofs and rousing every human, rat, and bird in a 50-league radius. You jerk awake, still half dreaming of warm abbey ovens, and find yourself back in the fortress loft, your new gilt fortis band glinting in cold light. No more easy palace errands today. The Baron's war has spilled into full catastrophe, and every heartbeat feels drafted. Below, the courtyard churns with clamor. Armorers hammer breastplates. Grooms shove mules into supply carts. Priests sprinkle holy water over barrels of arrows. All so frantic you'd think the world were ending, which for some poor souls under that bombardment is accurate scheduling. But up here among splintered rafters, the panic looks different. Pigeons hop and flap in claustrophobic circles, reading the vibrations through their bones long before keep folk grasp the strategic implications. Birds know when geography shifts. They feel the landscape in pressure, smell it in wind chemistry. And all morning the wind reeks of iron dust and fear. Your keeper, now sporting an eye patch after a midnight brawl over barley rations, stomps in with a leather satchel bursting with scroll tubes. His orders: assemble a relay chain thick enough to punch news through enemy lines. Every frontier outpost must learn which towers fell overnight, which bridges remain intact, and most important, how much grain still sits in the hidden granaries before the besiegers torch them. That last figure determines whether this war ends in negotiation or starvation. In modern terms, it's the password to the kingdom's bank account. He starts grabbing birds by the fistful. The champion hen, Sleipnir, 8 successful winter runs, gets the long northern leg. 2 young cocks with untested nerve take shorter links. Then his hand wanders toward you, slowly, as though weighing a doubt. Your crooked wing twitches, half invitation, half dread. He mutters, "Fortis still has a glide or two." Translation: expendable yet inspirational. They need a mascot bird to reassure the garrison that not every thread is unraveling. You are propaganda with feathers. Strap cinched. This time looser. Maybe gratitude or maybe speed. The parchment? A coded ledger of grain counts, disguised as a love poem so saccharine no soldier would read past the first simile. Only a few stewards and the receiving abbot know how to convert "your cheeks bloom like November apples" into "we have 32 wains of rye on the west terrace." Encryption, medieval edition, hide deadly numbers beneath embarrassing romance. Launch. Sky again. But today the airspace is a mosaic of danger. Siege catapults fling not just stones, but clay pots of burning pitch, which burst mid-arc, raining sticky fire on tents, and, occasionally, the random bird.
Flaming shrapnel hisses past you, sizzling like huge hornets. You thread between smoke columns, wings picking up ash that stains your primaries the color of bruised plums. At treetop height, you clear the besiegers' tents. From above, the army resembles spilled beetles, dark, armored carapaces, scurrying in purpose, but vulnerable if a single boot steps in the right place. Supply wagons snake along muddy ruts. Cooks stir cauldrons big enough to drown a hawk. Surgeons saw through bones outside canvas hospitals. You want to climb higher, away from human horror, but a low ceiling of storm clouds presses down. So you hug the turbulence, praying no one decides roast pigeon would brighten their stew. Mid-route, a gust shears from the west, thick with the ocean salt, hinting at a squall racing inland. Rain begins in fat, torpid drops, hammering feathers flat. Flight under wet load is like flapping sheets of chainmail. Every beat costs double. Instinct says land, wait out the storm. Duty says clock is ticking, grain math ages quickly. You compromise. Spot an oak with a natural cavity half hidden by ivy. You dive, wedge inside, body quivering from adrenaline. The parchment is still dry. For now, inside the hollow, you are not alone. Two eyes glow, an owl fledgling, fluffy and confused, but behind it, a larger silhouette, the mother, silent as thought, staring at your gilt band as if it were a dinner bell. Owls hunt pigeons. This truth is carved in bone memory. Rain or no, you rocket out, buffer zone evaporated. Talons swipe air behind you. Wingtips brush your tail feathers, pluck one free. Pain stings, but pain is proof you weren't swallowed. You burst back into open sky, right as lightning cleaves the clouds, searing your night vision even in day. Thunder cracks an instant later. The bolt struck close, maybe the oak itself. A shockwave flings you sideways, spiraling. You tuck wings, become a stone, then flare desperately before the ground's green blur resolves into spears of pine. You miss a trunk by inches, scythe through needles, regain rhythm. Heartbeat now percussion in your skull. Past the forest, the terrain smooths into heathland. Heather carpets slopes in dying purples. Rabbits vanish into warrens as your shadow sweeps by. They think you're a hawk despite your panicked zigzags. The rain lightens to drizzle, enough to lift again. Ahead, a river like a tarnished mirror. On its far bank, a lonely watchtower juts from a limestone knoll, your midway target. Smoke curls from the chimney. Good. Occupied. But occupation doesn't guarantee welcome. Desperate soldiers sometimes eat courier birds when rations fail. You circle once, assessing. Banner atop the tower shows the Baron's blue wolf emblem, but tattered and inverted. A distress signal or sabotage? No time. You spiral down, talons extended, land on the arrow-slit sill. Inside, two crossbowmen dice for coppers on a barrel. They freeze, astonished, then grin. The king's courier come to them. One rushes forward, slips the scroll free, not rough, almost reverent. The other fetches a dish of water and scattered oats, rare kindness. They don't untie your band. They add a second, smaller scroll, retie with damp fingers. Their message? Probably casualty numbers, maybe plea for more bolts. They toss you skyward through the hatch. You climb, but something feels off. Weight heavier. They used wax-sealed parchment, thicker, and tied it poorly, dangling to one side.
Imbalance drags you left each stroke, forcing constant correction. Fatigue creeps sooner. But the storm front has passed. A new tailwind gushes eastward, merciful. You ride it, slightly askew, like a boat with uneven cargo, yet 10 leagues evaporate beneath. On horizon, the abbey's slate roofs emerge, sun glinting off lead guttering. You taste the mineral tang before you see the dovecote spire. Monks long ago designed landing hoops shaped like runged ladders so birds can bleed speed in descending spirals. You angle in. A younger monk waits, palms together, gaze skyward, lips moving. Maybe he prays for your safe arrival, or for the news you carry. Either way, you arrow to the perch, talons clack, chest heaving. Gentle hands relieve you of the parchments. They work quickly, for clocks here are sundials and stomach growls. Delays mean souls. The grain code is whisked to the scriptorium, where friars decode with wax tablets. The tower message, unsealed, goes to the infirmary because it details wound triage and requires bandages, not debate. You expect rest, maybe crumbs. Instead, the abbot himself appears, austere eyes softening when he spots your crooked wing. He strokes your neck, whispers Latin blessings, then orders warm millet mush, luxury dish. As you gulp, he attaches a fresh scroll, tiny but ringed with an elaborate sigil, royal wax. Destination? The Queen's Hunting Lodge, 50 wind-thrashed miles along the coast. The route crosses salt marsh rife with falcons and treacherous fogs. The abbot hesitates, thumb on your head, measuring mercy versus necessity. Finally, he sighs. Deus te protegat, God protect you, and steps back. Duty wins again. Your muscles scream protest, but flight calls. You launch, see the abbey shrink, hear its bells toll sext, noon. By sundown, you must reach the lodge, or the Queen's advisors will act blind, maybe dispatching troops the wrong direction, maybe surrendering farmland unnecessary. You set course southeast, following the river's silver ribbon until it spills into estuary. Sea smell thickens, brine laced with decaying kelp. Gulls wheel, cawing insults. They're bullies, but slow. You weave through them, ignoring pecks. Then fog hugs the coastline, a wall of damp cotton. Visibility drops to wing length. Sound muffles. The world becomes heartbeat and drip. Homing sense relies partly on sun angle. Without it, you use magnetic fields. Yes, birds feel them, but iron nails in shipwrecks buried under these sands distort readings, turning compass into drunkard. You drift inland, recalibrate, drift seaward again, each correction wasting strength. Unexpected shape looms. An abandoned windmill skeleton on a promontory. You remember tales. Marauders camp there, trapping birds for stew. But mill roofs cut through fog like safe harbors. Choose between hunger and hunter. You bank away, trusting open sky. Hours bleed. Fatigue claws every fiber. At last, a lighter smear hints sunset beyond fog. West, good. You adjust. Below, pine forest appears. Clearing within stands a timber hall ringed by palisade, the Queen's Lodge. Banners with her silver stag emblem hang limp in damp air. Torches already lit.
You spiral down, but crossbowmen on the palisade snap weapons upward. Siege paranoia again. One looses a bolt. It whistles past your breast, thuds into mud. A steward yells, "Order ceasefire." He recognizes the gleam of royal wax. You flutter inside the courtyard, skid onto a hay bale, too exhausted to stand.
Ladies in waiting rush, coo admiration, dab your beak with honeyed cloth. You barely taste sweetness before everything fades to black. Sleep, crashing like a drawbridge. You wake in a small wicker cage near a hearth. Body aches, but warmth soothes. Outside the cage, courtiers pace, whisper. The queen herself appears, a red-haired woman in doe-skin riding cloak, eyes sharp as falcon. She bends, studies your band, smiles faintly. Fortis, she reads, appropriate. She removes the scroll, breaks seal, scans contents. Her jaw tightens, orders fly. Send riders to Harrowgate, recall the Western Levy, double grain convoy escorts. Lives will pivot because you survived fog and crossbows. She turns back, plucks a single feather loose. Not painful, a token, and tucks it in her prayer book. For victory, she murmurs. You are placed back near the hearth, served wheat kernels soaked in mead. Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, perhaps return trip. But for a few hours, war pauses, and a battered pigeon is honored like a knight. High overhead, ravens croak omens. Armies maneuver. Scribes sharpen quills. But you, Fortis, tuck head under wing and dream of a world where messages travel by silent thought instead of flesh and feather. The moon hasn't even folded itself behind the ridge when the warning horn wails, a long, ragged note that yanks the fortress from half-sleep into frantic motion. Somewhere beyond the eastern marsh, 3 torch lines flicker in unsettling sync, like serpents weaving a single fiery braid across the dark. Raiders. You don't need human ears to parse the pattern. Heat tremors ride the night air, carrying the scent of tar-soaked arrows and cheap lamp oil. In the dovecote, it hits like lightning-struck cedar, sending every bird, and your battered nerves, flutter mad across cramped rafters. The keeper barges in barefoot, cloak backward, muttering curses that would unbless holy water. His lantern swings an erratic strobe, carving fevered shadows of wing and talon on the lime-washed walls. He doesn't bother with the gentle coaxing he used yesterday. Tonight, he's harvesting couriers as a reaper swings scythe. Scrolls spill from his belt like eels, each sealed with wax, still soft from the scriptorium candles. He shoves 2 into Sleipnir's canister, 3 into the gray fledglings, and then his gaze locks on you. No hesitation. The king's new cipher, intended for the city's south gate commander, must travel the quickest wings. That means yours, ragged, crooked, but proven. Before dawn breaks, 4 birds will streak out in 4 different directions. The keeper calls it scattering the truth. If one is shot, another might slip through. Simple math of living information. Yet as he straps the leather barrel to your leg, the keeper's hand lingers, a silent apology, maybe an unspoken prayer. He slips a thin slice of dried fig under your tongue, quick sugar for the miles to come. Then he strides to the window,
shoulders trembling either from cold or terror, and flings you into the wind.
Night flying is a gamble you rarely win twice. The sky becomes a cavern of moving ink, painted only with sparks of distant hearths or the quick flare of patrol lanterns. Your avian eyes catch enough starlight to navigate, but tonight clouds swallow constellations piece by piece, erasing the roadmap one smear at a time. You aim toward the river's lullaby, a bass note hush just audible below the rustling forest. Water rarely lies. It curves predictably and points toward human settlements. Find the river, follow its silver edge, and eventually you'll splash into the great stone bulwark of Southgate. Except the raiders know that too. Half an hour in, a shaft scream slices the dark, a crossbow bolt skimming wide, quivering into the canopy. Another follows, closer, close enough that the wake flips feathers on your barrel. You bank hard, dive behind a screen of pines where bolt tips thunk harmlessly into bark. Below, raiders tramp through undergrowth, leather armor creaking, dogs whining at the end of hemp leads. They carry handheld lanterns, hooded like executioners, and occasionally douse the light to listen for wing beats. Hunting you? Maybe. Or any pigeon foolish enough to become dinner. You hold breath you don't have, hugging the pine's black silhouette until the men pass beneath, muttering about cursed birds and stingy paymasters. When they vanish, you climb, wings aching from the hold. The detour costs 15 minutes and a strip of confidence, but soon river music bubbles again beneath. Ahead, fog curls off the water, pearlescent in sparse moonshine. You duck lower, skimming the surface where thick air cloaks you from silhouettes with bows. But fog brings its own foe, a marsh owl perched silent on a snag. It launches, ghost white for an instant, talons extended. You juke reflexively, feel claws rake the empty space where your head was. In that frantic gyration, the scroll barrel bangs against your shin, agony bright as day dancing through bone. You recover, thrash onward, owl giving chase for 10 murderous heartbeats before deciding the pain isn't worth the calorie count. When the river loops south, you know you're close. Southgate's watchfires paint the fog orange, diffusing into a halo over battlements. But tonight, an extra pall rises, smoke heavier, shot through with sparks. The city is already under attack. Siege ladders lean like crooked teeth against outer walls. Flames nibble at their bases. You glimpse defenders dumping cauldrons of lime-soaked pitch, hear screams, some human, some wood. Couriers aren't expected to breach battle lines. They're expected to cheat them. So you skirt the northern aqueduct, where unguarded arches form a stone flute no one thinks to plug. During drought, these channels flow sluggish. Tonight, they are nearly dry. Drought's gift to spies and pigeons. You dive, threading between arches until you emerge beneath the third tier of wall, unobserved save for a lone rat nibbling ashes. Climbing with wounded shin feels like dragging an anchor, but you spring upward in vertical bursts, wingtips scratching limestone for purchase. One final thrust delivers you to the parapet walkway, wings quivering with exhaustion. A sentry spots you, raises sword, then catches the gleam of royal seal and lowers the blade, awe trumping hunger. He cups you carefully, hurries below. The commander waits in the gatehouse, left arm bandaged from elbow to wrist, face soot-streaked yet alert. He pops the wax, unrolls the vellum.
eyes flick left and right, scanning. Then, without pause, he flips the parchment and scribbles a brief reply in charcoal. A cipher of numbers that means supplies held, gate intact, reinforcements required by dawn. He swaps the old sheet for new, cracks his wax signet and reseals, this time 3 quick imprints to show highest urgency.
He ties the barrel back, but before releasing, orders a squire to fetch a tin vial. The boy returns, and Commander dips a linen tuft, smears a foul-smelling paste along the barrel leather, fox urine mixed with sage. Falcon repellent, he explains, or so the herbalist promises. The stench suggests it repels everything except flies. Back on the parapet, the commander lifts you to eye level. "Godspeed, little envoy," he says, and lofts you skyward. Destination now, High Cliff Lookout, 70 wind-swept miles yonder, perched on a basalt spire above the sea. You gain altitude, leaving the siege glow behind. Stars peek through torn cloud, gifting navigation again. The paste reeks, but wind tears scent away. For an hour the night is merciful, silence broken only by distant thunder rolling beyond mountains. Then the wind shifts, a coastal gale barreling inland. It smashes you sideways, slamming wing against wing, inverting you like tossed laundry. You right yourself, but velocity bleeds. Each beat gains a meter, only to lose 2. At this rate, you'll stall and plummet. So you ride the gale east, off course, trusting geography unseen. Below appears a lightning-lit glimpse of bluff, the sea gnawing its foot. You realize you've drifted too far shoreward. Yet clifftop currents, though vicious, offer lift. You angle up a wind column, catching an updraft that rockets you high above the frothing breakers. There, momentarily weightless, you spot High Cliff's beacon fires, 3 vertical flames on a square tower, faint but unmistakable. You correct course, gliding rather than flapping, letting sheer altitude translate into forward drift. But altitude's price arrives in temperature. Freezing air needles joints, the injured shin throbs ice. You tuck hurt leg tight to belly, steering single-footed. It works, barely, until a rogue gust flips you again, and this time, cold, stiff wings don't snap open fast enough. Free fall. Air roars, stars spin. You claw space, overcorrect, side slip. The scroll barrel slams rib, pain electric. In final reflex, you spread tail wide as net, decelerating just before slamming through a bramble thicket atop the cliffs. Thorns rake feathers, but bush absorbs impact like a cruel cushion. You hang there upside down, heartbeat hammering, blood roaring in ears. Moments, or minutes, pass. You test wings. Functional. Shin, agony but intact. You wiggle free, crawl out. High Cliff Beacon looms only a furlong away, its fires hissing in gale. One last flight? No juice. You hop, then flutter low across the scrub, each burst a knife in muscle, but land atop parapet stone, delirious with relief. A watchman rushes over, cloak snapping. He scoops you, notes barrel, sounds a horn triple blast. Within heartbeats, the tower steward appears, accepts scroll with trembling hands. They usher you inside, near a hearth where salt-damp boots steam. You collapse onto wool. Someone fetches crumbs soaked in egg yolk. Another plucks thorns from wing. A boy scribes the commander's message into the ledger, then begins drafting reply for return courier, but not you. A black-feathered veteran rests in adjacent coop. Tomorrow's danger is his. Fog still clings to the stone rafters of Highcliffe when the dovecote's shutter bangs open and the keeper limps in, wheezing like bellows left out in the rain. He hasn't slept, none of them have, but daylight is bleeding up the horizon and the capital demands answers faster than any horse can ride. His eyes are bloodshot, beard spark-flecked, voice raw from barking orders through half the night. Yet the words that crack out now are even rougher, rasped less to you than to the room itself. They torched the grain convoy. If the queen doesn't know by sundown, the siege wins without another arrow. There's a pause so pregnant you could name it. Then his gaze lowers to your perch. Patched wing, bruised shin, feathers still dotted with dried bramble blood. He grimaces, half pity, half calculation. Yesterday he promised you rest. Today, that promise shatters like a dropped oil lamp. He needs a flyer who's already proven the impossible. Frayed feathers don't weigh as much as fresh doubt. He approaches with a leather harness new-stitched overnight, lighter, tighter, built to keep scrolls from rattling loud enough for hawks to hear. 4 messages slide inside, 2 short orders, 1 ransom negotiation, and a thin strip of parchment laced in spiral cipher so dense it looks like a spider died spinning misery across vellum. The king's sigil burns scarlet on every wax seal, but the cipher coil bears no mark at all, as if secrecy is its own signature. The keeper's fingers tremble when they cinch the strap around your chest. He notices the scabbed talon, the stiff wing, and sighs. Then he does something he's never done before, pulls a scrap of wool from his pocket, stuffs it gently beneath the buckle to stop chafing. It's the smallest mercy, and it makes the weight of the barrel feel suddenly heavier, an anchor of obligation. Hearthguard Tower, he mutters, pointing south where morning paints the clouds salmon pink. 52 miles over open fields. Hawks ride that air like thieves, and the enemies started training gyrfalcons to fetch couriers mid-flight. Keep high, and if you see bright leather hoods, dive cloudside. Don't be a hero. He tips a wooden cup of rainwater. You drink reflexively, letting cool droplets rinse the taste of fox urine still lodged on your tongue. He strokes your crown once, an apology more than affection, then strides to the window ledge. Outside, the wind is a taut harp string, humming with distant catapult thuds. He lifts you, counts a silent beat, and releases. The first mile is liberation. Wing joints pop like door hinges freshly oiled, muscles unknot under warm draft. Each downstroke pushes hurt farther behind until ache becomes echo. Below unfurl patchwork farms, rectangles of stubble, dark loam, and purple clover waving tiny flags to the new sun. A shepherd stares skyward, hand shading eyes, maybe wondering if you're a dove of peace or omen of war. Either way, you are gone before his second blink. At 8 miles, hawks appear, 3 specks pirouetting on thermals. You angle left, aiming for a wispy stratus veil that drapes the upper air. Hawks prefer clear vision, hate invisible prey. Inside the cloud world, everything muffles. Wind, fear, heartbeat. Moisture beads on feathers like silver seeds. You stay there, ghost in cotton, until predators wheel off elsewhere. The clouds thin eventually, and when sunlight sluices through, a new danger greets you, human this time. A wooden tower juts from a hillside, topped with a contraption of canvased wings. It looks absurd, like a windmill built by children. But men in curved helmets crank winches, turning the structure toward the horizon. You've heard whispers. The enemy's new Skynet, a lattice of twine lofted by kites to snare messenger birds. Experimental, untested, and you are the test subject. The canvas wings snap, the frame lurches upward, flinging a web 15 yards across into rising thermal. Its cords glimmer, greased with something sticky. Panic snaps your wits taut. You dive, but downdraft collides head-on. Slipstream yanks you sideways toward the mesh. Threads loom like prison bars. You tuck wings, become a stone, plummeting just as the net sails overhead. Wind whistles. Twine grazes your tail feathers but misses grip. You free-fall long enough to regret every seed you ever ate, then flare wings and pull hard upward, chest heaving with molten air. Behind, the crew curses, scrambling to reload. But the net, heavy with pitch, drags slowly earthward to snag a thorn thicket instead. You climb fast, angling back into cloud cover until tower fades to splinter in distance. Halfway mark, the River Morrow. Wide, slow, and shining, it threads the landscape like a giant's discarded mirror. A barge creaks below, loaded with barrels banded in iron. You read the deck sigils, enemy iconography. Powder casks, maybe trebuchet shot. An escort skiff trails astern, carrying archers. One spots you, knocks arrow, releases. Feathered death hisses by, close enough to rustle primary quills. You bank again, but pain flares an old shin wound. Muscles seize, forcing descent. Landing on the barge is suicide. Landing near it, worse. Instead, you aim for an ox cart bridge upstream, stone arches low and moss slick. Aiming wrong means river water shock that snaps bones. You hold breath, glide, tuck wings at last second, and slam onto parapet ledge. Talons scrape, hold. Archers shout, pivot bows. Stone parapet becomes arrow magnet. You scuttle underside, pressing belly against dank masonry where arrowheads spark off rock over your head. They curse louder, but the barge's current pulls them out of range. Eventually, the shouts fade. You exhale. The ledge is narrow, swarming with gnats and ghost cold from night damp, yet it grants two gifts, reprieve and vantage. Ahead, a chalk road snakes up rolling moor to Hearthguard Tower, a stout keep visible as grey thorn on horizon. But enemy patrols march both flanks. You must arrive unseen. So you trade altitude for cunning, hugging river's fog until it dissipates near moor edge. Then you ascend in slow spirals, timing wing beats to distant catapult volleys, so any listening sentinel mistakes flapping for echo of war machines. It's absurd spycraft, but absurdity often keeps you alive. At 15 miles remaining, you hit the coastal wind line again, steady, strong, mercifully aligned with your course. You rest wings half spread, surf the invisible tide. Below, scattered farms give way to heather heath. Sheep look like tumbled clouds. Somewhere a church bell tolls, not for prayer, but for alarm. Invaders near. 7 miles left, and trouble finds you anew, wearing feathers of kin. A gyrfalcon climbs beneath, silver underside flashing like drawn steel. It locks onto you with predator mathematics, speed, angle, dive line. You juke, spiral, but falcon matches easy, dropping
Instinct
into stoop. Screams to drop canister. The scroll may survive ground impact, whereas you will not survive talons. But training denies that coward impulse. Instead, you invert, dive headlong toward a stand of skeletal trees jutting from peat bog ahead. Branches stripped by past lightning form a crown of sharpened sticks. You aim dead center. Falcon plunges behind, wings folded to bullets. At last instant, you flare sideways, slashing past bark with feather-width clearance. Predator tries to mirror, but geometry betrays him. He clips a limb, tumbles, recovers low, bruised ego louder than fracture. He banks away, deciding easier prey awaits elsewhere. You do not celebrate. Every near miss shortens life by invisible measure. But you thank the keeper's foul paste all the same. Perhaps fox stink fouled the falcon's nostrils mid-dive, giving moments hesitation that spared you. Hearthguard tower at last. Its banners hang limp, colors dim. Smoke curls from arrow slits. Kitchen hearth or burning documents, impossible to know. You circle once, announcing presence to rooftop sentries who brandish shields in coded semaphore. Recognition flashes via mirrored disc. They signal safe perch on corbel jutting near turret stair. Talons meet stone again. Sweet agony of arrival. Guard captain appears, helm dented, eyes ringed purple by sleepless terror. He frees the barrel, rips seals, scans contents under angled sunbeam. His jaw tightens. "Convoy lost," he whispers, then snaps orders to a runner. "Mobilize reserve carts, ration grain, send for allied levy." He rewrites a reply with trembling quill. Inventory counts, morale status, rumor of traitor inside granary staff. Seals once, twice, thrice. But before handing barrel back, he produces miniature packet, flaxcloth soaked in mint oil. "For wounds," he mutters, awkwardly dabbing your shin. The cooling sting numbs ache instantly. He finishes, ties packet around talon with a thread. A battlefield bandage for a bird. Absurd, touching. Wind shifts, horns sound beyond walls. Another attack brewing. Captain swallows dread, walks you to parapet. "Capital must know before dusk," he says. "You've one more in you?" You answer by springing skyward before doubt can weigh the leap. Return route veers coastward to dodge falcon territory, but introduces new villain, weather. Afternoon heats sea to boiling mood. Clouds mount like cavalry, spears of lightning flicking surface. Thunderheads tower block purple, hungry to swallow anything winged. You could skirt inland, but enemy pickets thick along that band. Storm seems lesser evil. You sail into churning sky. Rain pelts, first needles, then nails. Each droplet a hammer on bruise. Lightning splits air off port wing. Ozone cracks searing sinuses.
But storm drafts sling you forward with brutal generosity, 30 knots of propulsion you could never muster alone. Risk of electrocution traded for speed that hurls you halfway home in minutes.
Then heaven's trap closes. Updraft shears, leaving dead air. You stall, tumble, vanish into cloud gullet. Vision erased, direction meaningless. Barrel-laden weight yanking you downward at slope of fear. Instinct shouts, spread wings, but which horizon? You choose based on vague brightness, hoping it's ground, not sky. Wings catch, lurch you sideways. Cloud spits you into torrential downpour 10 yards above treetops.
Branches whip past like spears. You dodge, weave, but thunderclap startles, and next gust slams you into pine crown. Feather explosion, bark scrape, but wings miraculously hold. You perch, panting, inside swaying branches while storm belches overhead. Scrolls safe, bones mostly. Yet the barrel strap now loose, leather stretched wet. If it slips, message lost, mission failed, death of thousands maybe. With beak and claw, you tighten knot, nearly dropping vial of mint packet. Task done, you wait storm's half-life, counting heartbeats until thunder retreats eastward. When rain thins to drizzle, you launch again, careful. Dusk bleeds copper when capital battlements finally emerge, candles winking along parapets like weary fireflies. Sentries on North Tower spot you, whistle 3 notes that drift across courtyard. A page darts from gatehouse, waving scrap cloth. Safe corridor cleared, no archers will mistake you for spy. You coast over moat, through arrow slot purposely widened for couriers, and land upon dovecote sill, where keeper paces trench into floorboards. Seeing you, he breaks into involuntary laugh, half joy, half hysteria. He frees canister, eyes flicking relief and alarm as he notes your ragged state. Scrolls whisk away with a steward, but he lingers, inspecting leg bandage. "Mint oil?" he asks. You coo weakly. He nods, fetches warm mash of barley and honey, lets you feast until crop bulges. He dries feathers with cloth, sets you in fresh straw. Lantern light dims to amber hush. Outside, palace bells announce council convening. Decisions will be made on grain, on traitors, on falcon nets. You, broken courier in straw cocoon, have moved empires an inch towards salvation. No bard will sing it, no scribe record your name. But the keeper offers honor the only way he can, trimming a tail feather to save as talisman against future storms. As lids droop, you hear distant clamor of armories, smell hearth smoke curling through loft, feel ache settle into healing. Sleep comes thick, almost merciful, and if thunder returns tomorrow, you'll answer anyway, because that's the cruel pact of wings and war. Moonlight hits the dovecote like spilled milk, pale and cold, slipping through the slats to chalk every perch in ghost dust. The keeper's snores rumble below, deep, ragged, and oddly soothing, but the rest of the fortress is sleepless. Troop boots clack in endless circles on the Bailey stones. Farther off, siege drums mutter like distant thunder stuck behind hills. Somewhere, a carpenter hammers, racing dawn to finish a barricade no one thinks will hold.
You ought to be dozing, wings folded, crop heavy from the honey barley mash, but tonight the straw prickles restless. Call it habit, call it premonition. Either way, your blood senses change before the fortress bells dare confirm it. And sure enough, the first iron toll crashes through the air, jerking the keeper upright like a marionette yanked by cruel fingers. He hurries up the ladder, lantern swinging, face whittled thinner by each new alarm.
"Up again, feather brave," he whispers, voice tinny beneath the bell clangs. He unrolls a parchment with trembling hands. A blended scent of wax, ink, and midnight sweat coils off the page. Capital's orders: we break the siege by dawn or starve. They need a counter-offensive schedule in the southern marsh. You're the only flyer who knows that route. You've never flown south of the chalk road. Hawks nest thicker there, and beyond the marsh rise, night forests where owls hunt anything that flutters. Still, refusing isn't in the vocabulary the keeper taught you. He reaches for your harness, the leather still damp from yesterday's storm, and cinches on a fresh oak bark canister, slimmer than the last, but capped with beeswax to keep mud vapor from seeping in. This time, though, he pulls out a final parcel, a tuft of soft gray down tied to a sliver of willow. "Found on the battlements," he mutters. "Gerfalcon feather. They've brought in specialists." He tucks it beneath the strap as a grim souvenir, then checks the mint poultice around your shin, reapplies a dab of honeyed salve, and steps back. Outside, the battlements burn red under torch flare. A gust screams through arrow loops, rattling shutters like dice in a cup. The keeper's eyes grow wet, not tears, just wind, but still he bows his head. "May saints smooth the sky for you." He lifts, releases.
Air hits colder tonight, a blade coated in moon frost. You carve through it anyway, pumping to clear the fortress lights before enemy archers notch silhouettes against the stars. The city falls behind in a sigh of smoke and sparks. Ahead yawns the southern landscape you've never dared, the mudspan.
Even from altitude you smell it. Peat rot, algae bloom, and camp coal ash where armies bivouac on makeshift islands. The marsh sprawls like a black quilt patched in reed stubble, dotted with firefly lanterns of scouting boats. To cross straight over is suicide. Every glow may hide a falconer, every hummock top a hungry heron. Strategy instead. Follow the river seam westward, then hook south where reed mats not too thick for boats. 10 miles in, the river becomes a silver eel twisting beneath you, its skin quivering with reflected stars. Dragonflies rise like sparks, mosquitoes thicken to fog. Their bites don't pierce feathers, but the whining swarm laces your ears, threatens concentration. Worse, they lure bats, small, furious, unpredictable drunks of the night sky. A fluttering squeal warns too late. One bat clips your left wingtip, veers off cursing in its squeaky dialect. Pain blooms. A primary feather snaps free, cartwheeling earthward. You wobble, but hold altitude. Can't afford a damaged flight line this early. You climb, chasing thinner air where insects fear to tread. Bats peel away, stars brighten, marsh glimps fade to dull slate far below. Past the marsh waits the thornwood, a sprawl of pines so tight wind can't turn. Legends say exile ghosts drift between trunks, humming lullabies that send intruders dreaming until root snakes find them. Myths don't scare birds much, but thornwood owls do. Spectral predators with wings the color of your dawn. You angle for a narrow corridor the keeper marked on a burnt scrap weeks ago. A beaver dam lake bisecting the forest, 30 yards wide, shielded by mist and deemed safe because owls hate crossing open water. When the dark tree line swells beneath, you drop altitude, scanning for the mirror-still patch. Moonlit fog cloaks everything. Shapes crease and twist, stump or sentinel, reflection or snare net. There, the lake gleams, smooth as polished shield. You aim center, skimming a wingspan over the surface. Fish ripple below, startled by your shadow. Mist licks feathers cool. For a fleeting breath, serenity hums. Then the water erupts. A thin cord rockets upward, weighted with a hooked pebble. It slashes past your breast, missing by a thumb breadth. Another follows, and another. A sling trap. The enemy anticipated the so-called safe corridor, strung fishing lines across the lake tied to stones, invisible until moonlight grazes them. You juke right. A cord grazes wing, slicing shallow cut through contour feathers. It hurts, but the line snaps, lacking tension. Still, panic drives you upward where no cord can reach. A final hook whizzes by, plops into lake, sending ripples that swallow stars. You clear the trap zone, panting, pulse hammering harder than wings. High above, Thornwood tapers to sedge meadow. That's where the marsh courier post should stand, a crumbling watchtower repurposed as message relay. You spot its lantern, a lonely ember, and descend in zigzag pattern to shake whatever night eyes tracked your panic climb. The tower is half ruin, roof gone, stair spiral cracked, but the dovecote niche remains. A girl barely older than a sapling waits, crossbow lounging on lap. When you alight, her smile flickers. "Thought you were myth," she whispers. She retrieves the oak canister, swaps in 2 new scrolls. One mere scrap of numbers, troop counts, the other sealed with 3 inks layered like snake bands. She slips them inside, then produces something unexpected. A sliver of dried apple soaked in vinegar. She lifts it to your beak. Tangy sweetness jolts energy through tired muscles. Before dawn haze slips away, you launch again. Destination now, Riverside Fort, 35 miles southwest. That outpost commands the only stone bridge into the enemy's rear supply. Your scrolls will trigger its sabotage if they arrive before enemy engineers reinforce. First challenge, distance. Second, sunrise. As east rim glows, you lose dark cover. Owls retire, but day hunters rise. Peregrines blessed with speeds legends envy. Worse, thermal winds over meadows swirl erratically, bouncing you like leaf on river. To compensate, you adopt low flight, weaving just yards above grass tips, using terrain to mask silhouette. But low air hides dangers of its own: fox leaps, stray arrows, and worst, wind-blown net traps staked between poplar trunks. Some are obvious, but one nearly claims you. Silk-spun, color of dawn, almost invisible until a gust billows it outward. You barrel roll underneath, feel string scrape your back sheath. Another inch and you dangle like a pinned moth. Near midday, a ridge rises, crowned by ruined chapel.
You spiral up drafts to crest it and nearly collide with carrion crows feasting on something unidentifiable but once wearing armor. They shriek, lunch interrupted, dive bomb in rage. Beaks peck, claws rake. One snags harness strap, tugging as if to tear canister free. You twist, snap beak at its leg. It squawks and retreats, but others swarm. Remembering storm net, you dive, forcing crows to pursue single file. Their heavier bodies stall, most peel off. 2 stubborn remain. You head for a thicket where thorn branches knit tighter than crow wings. At last second, you dart through a narrow gap. Crows follow and crash into thorns, cursing black feathers scattered like ink. With ridge behind, you glimpse the river valley, broad, shimmering, dotted with tents of riverside fort. Smoke plumes show forges aflame, repairs in frenzy. You must deliver before gate reinforcements complete. Approach from sunward to blind sentries. You climb, circle until sun sits behind tail, then bolt forward, light myriading off wings. Sentries shield eyes, missing silhouette that darts past battlements. You perch on Inner Keep's hawk post where a one-eyed commander waits, gauntlet outstretched. His face creases on seeing blood streaks along your flank. "Long night for little hero," he rumbles. He frees scrolls, reads stripped cipher first. Lips tighten. "Bridge must fall before dusk tide," he growls to aid. He scribbles fallback timings, sketches powder keg placement, and slides plan into barrel. Then, unexpectedly, he fishes a feather token from pouch, bright teal kingfisher plume. He braids it into your leg band beside grim gyrfalcon souvenir. "Luck favors color," he says. But new trouble ghosts his brow. Enemy scouts mass on ridgeline. Return flight east is sealed. You must carry north through Zephyr Pass. It's higher, colder, but they have no birds there. Too thin air. Zephyr Pass. Tales speak of wind so fierce it strips bark from pines, flings goats off cliffs. Yet options dwindle. You accept by silent launch. Hours later, the mountains loom, ragged teeth gnawing clouds. Pine scent fades into mineral tang. Air thins until each beat feels like pumping lead. Updrafts swirl unpredictable. 1 minute lift surges, next it drops away. You tack like ship in maelstrom, using ridge lift, scanning for thermals, berthing off sun-baked scree. Halfway through, pass, a snow squall ambushes. White curtains swallowing world. Ice crystals cling to beak, freezing nostrils. Your injured shin throbs in numbing cold. Each wing stroke agony, but gliding impossible. Downdrafts hunt like wolves. Vision narrows. Flap, breathe, dive, climb. Rock spires flicker in blizzard like daggers. You dodge one, graze another. Pain explodes along left shoulder. Feather tuft gone, not vital. Keep moving. The pass throat finally widens, disgorging you onto the northern slope where storm breaks, revealing emerald foothills quilted in late summer bloom. Warm air kisses iced wings. Shock of pleasure so sharp it steals a chirp. But relief short-lived. You've drifted off course. Capital lies east, not northeast. Sun inches to horizon. Dusk tide countdown ticks.
Sacrifice glide time to correct heading. You push east, muscles shredded, tongue thick, crop empty. Each breath whistles. Yet ground rushes beneath. You are still fast enough. Final miles blur. City towers silhouette against tangerine sky. You angle for dovecote window, thread needle-hole landing. The keeper catches you mid-collapse. Barrel off, message sprinted away by scribes before feathers stop quaking. He lays you in fresh straw, but straw feels cloud-soft now. Somewhere, bells will soon toll the bridge demolition. Somewhere, soldiers will cross unguarded because a battered bird beat impossible winds.
Your eyelids fall heavy, but just before sleep claims, the keeper strokes your head. One more flight at dawn, he murmurs, equal parts apology and pride. You coo, half laugh, half groan. Of course there is. There is always one more flight. Wind rolls across the ramparts in nervous breaths, cool, salt-tinged and fresh with the smell of sunrise fires from distant bakeries. A single violet strip of dawn lifts the eastern skyline. Lanterns inside the dovecote glow like tired embers preparing to give up their watch. Every feather along your spine trembles, equal parts ache and anticipation. 6 journeys in 48 hours have rubbed raw every joint, nicked every quill, and left a roadmap of bruises beneath the darkest down. Yet here you stand, wobbly, yes, but still stubbornly upright on the keeper's crooked finger.
No fanfare greets you this time. The garrison is running on fumes and weak broth. Cheers have turned to hoarse nods as soldiers trade helms for shovels to repair shattered walls. The capital itself is weeks from siege, but rumor moves faster than cavalry, and rumor says enemy outriders already taste river dust at the city's fringes. That means one last relay, one last gamble on your ragged wings before riders can choke the roads and ballistas claim the skies.
The keeper's eyes linger on the scar under your left wing, a pink seam stitched yesterday by luck and hope. He dabs it with marigold salve, winces more than you do. Then he lowers his voice to a Hinge Creek whisper, the way he does when delivering awful truth dressed as apology. Today's note is heavier than parchment, he says, sliding the scroll out of its beeswax tube. This one is parchment vellum, sandwiched around a sliver of hammered velvet steel. Key to the city's crypt codes, he explains. If this falls into enemy claws, every cipher we own unravels like old rope.
Translation: capture is not an option.
He swaps the battered oak canister for a new cedar one, bound with thin brass hoops. The weight drags at your chest feathers, a warning bell each time you breathe. He places a droplet of honey onto your tongue, then, almost shyly, unties the kingfisher plume he gifted earlier. Too bright, he mutters. North Road glitters like glass in daylight. Color could catch a crossbowman's eye. He tucks the plume into his own pocket and replaces it with a dull sparrow feather, humble, invisible. Outside, trumpets yelp a hurried reveille. Supply carts grind toward the western gate. You twist to face the wind, shuffling feet, reading invisible currents, mapping the route you'll carve. Up the cathedral spire, over the merchant quarter rooftops, across the canal corridor, and then
Uncharted territory, straight into enemy lines already creeping between orchard rows.
The keeper's hands shake harder than yours. Fly low first mile, avoid the patrolling kestrel, then climb on the sea draft. He smiles a cracked smile. You know the rest better than I ever will.
He opens his fingers. Gravity briefly owns you, then wings claim the debt. Your muscles protest but obey. Up, forward, into final flight.
City rooftops unwrap beneath. Slate, thatch, and patchwork tarps where market stalls brace for dawn customers who might never arrive. Chimney smoke sketches diagonal stripes across soaking air. You slip between them, cloaked by soot. Street-level voices are thin threads of conversation. Traders bargaining on credit, children pretending war with wooden swords, a priest calling early mass for frightened hearts. You steal each sound, stash it like a talisman against fear.
At Canal Corridor, the water glitters rosy, reflecting sunrise and siege smoke alike. Barges jam the waterway, stacked with barrels of salt fish and sacks of dried beans, food invisible armies will devour by spring. Sailors curse the harbor chain lifted high across the mouth to block enemy craft. You skim inches over it, wingtip brushing rust-flecked iron. Behind the chain, the sea lies calm but treacherous. No hawks, no soldiers, only gulls too busy with crab shells to care about one dull-colored pigeon hugging the foam. Sea air buoys you, salt sharpening your lungs like vinegar. You climb in widening spirals, searching for that sweet width of sky where wind turns from opponent to ally. It finds you at 300 feet, a firm river of air pouring inland. You slip into its current. Every downstroke now multiplies lift. With tail trimmed tight, you accelerate east-northeast, covering miles in fists of seconds. Below, orchards scroll past. Gnarled branches bent under early fruit, leaves flickering silver in gusts. Between rows move enemy outriders, 5, maybe 6 squads. Saddles glossy, lances tipped with black pennants. They scan the sky lazily. Their commanders still believe messenger pigeons head straight for clouds at dawn, not surf. You angle inland where orchards thin into pasture. Cows scatter, lowing like broken horns as the first arrow hisses up from somewhere left. Instinct yanks you into a corkscrew dive. The arrow misses by yards, but it's enough to alert others. Feathered shafts sprout skyward in clumsy bouquet fashion. Fortunately, archers on horseback shoot worse than children with slings. You cut through the arrow bloom, each near miss carving fresh adrenaline into bone. Pastures give way to heather heath, purple as bruised grapes. The draft you've been riding dissipates here, blocked by rolling hills. Muscles resume full burden. Your torn secondary feathers grumble. You descend for groundhug flight, weaving among scattered gorse bushes, each studded with yellow blooms and hidden thorns. Then, ahead, Zephyr Pass's northern exit you fought last night, stands a decayed wind tower, one of dozens that once drove grain mills, now converted to covert rest station. Its blade arms are gone, only a stone cylinder remains. Smoke curls lazily from a slit at its crown. Allies or ambush? You bank in cautious circle. The tower roof bears a splash of white paint shaped like half moon, the secret mark of resistance safe houses. Good. Yet landing still feels risky, Weight of code key on your breast begs no detours. So you choose compromise, a touch and go. As you skim the roof edge, a boy in patched tunic pops up and flashes a silver mirror. 1, 2, 3 blinks. Friend code. He tosses a packet skyward, tiny linen pouch tied with horsehair. You snatch it mid-air. Inside is poppy seed mash, quick energy, plus a folded scrap reading simply, "Falcons loose on high ridge. Use valley shadow." You swallow mash in 2 gulps, then drop the pouch back for reuse. Another blink of mirror and you're off, angling into valley gloom where dawn light still hesitates. The valley winds whip eddies smelling of wet earth and distant pine. While your wings labor, mind drifts to memory catalog. First worm you ever tasted, rubbery. First hawk you ever juked, terrifying. The taste of honey water after your maiden flight. And you remember things larger than yourself, how fortress watchers wept when you returned from third journey, how the one-eyed commander's gauntlet felt steady despite his scars, how the keeper's laughter used to thunder like a bell before war peeled its richness away. Such thoughts weigh nothing, but they slow you. They make each breath wider, each wing beat deliberate. You count them. 100 to river crossing, 90 to burned wheat fields, 80 to the old aqueduct that arches like a spine of stone across the countryside. The aqueduct appears, a gray rib cage slicing valley in half. Under its arches churns a charcoal throb of enemy supply wagons escorted by pike. They believe themselves safe beneath masonry, shielding them from artillery and hawks. They have never met a pigeon willing to gamble stone gaps. You time gusts, then dive headlong through Arch 3, slip under the next wagon's canvas, exit at rear, and slingshot up the opposite side. Chaos erupts below, drivers shouting, pikes raised. One man throws a net that snags nothing but air. By the time they reposition bows, you are a mite against the sun. Climbing again taxes lungs. Each inhale burns like kiln air. But on the horizon, at last, stands the capital's great north watchtower. Basalt, crowned by copper vein shaped as lion rampant. Sunset paints it blood orange, though noon is not yet. Either your eyes blur, or smoke from unseen fires already stains the sky. Closer now. You drop altitude, aiming for arrow-slit entrance near the tower's bell. But halfway in, a falcon shadow eclipses you, a silhouette you know too well, gyrfalcon from Fortress Trophy Feather. Its cry slices wind clean. They brought their specialist here after all. Instinct screams retreat. Memory counters with Keeper's plea. No retreat. Your cargo cannot be captured. The falcon stoops. You fake a straight climb, then collapse wings, plunging toward tower wall. Stone rushes up. At final instant, you flare sideways, scraping claws against rough surface. Falcon overshoots, breaking hard, feathers rattling like dice. You pivot into a window slit no wider than your body. Inside, cold corridor lit by arrow loops. A guard runs, surprised by your entry. You dart above his helmet. Down spiral stairs smelling of oil and sweat until hallway opens into war room. Map tables sprawl, candles guttering. At their center stands the cipher mistress, gray-haired, eyes edge-sharp. She sees brass canister, extends wrist without word.
You land. Legs tremble. She unlatches tube, extracts steel sliver, studies for heartbeat. Then she nods, not to you, but to a runner who sprints off, shouting codes that will scatter troops into positions unseen.
Relief unspools through sore muscles. You slump into her palm. She strokes head feathers once, gently, then passes you to a page. Feeding bay for this hero, then quarantine coop, no chances with hawk scratches. She returns to maps. Already strategists gather, bending over lines that will decide fates.
The page carries you past stained glass window where sun finally owns the sky. Below, city streets shimmer hectic, blacksmith sparks, messenger horses, civilian volunteers hauling stones. Yet somewhere, children still chase hoops, and vendors still hawk hot chestnuts. Life persists on the thinnest hope strands, strands you helped spin. At the feeding bay, you settle into cushioned perch. Warm millet, fresh water laced with ginger, a shallow dish of ground flax await. The healer inspects your wounds, applies comfrey, clucks approval. "We'll mend," she says. "In a week, maybe you fly again." She winks conspiratorially, as though anybody could stop you sooner. You eat, drink, then tuck head beneath wing, classic surrender to healing sleep. But rest doesn't come, not yet, because you still feel the weight of sky, hear drumbeat wings of falcon, taste salt of sea draft. Story threads twitch unfinished. So you hop onto sill overlooking city and release one final soft coo that drifts up like prayer. Far below, bells toll, the signal that bridge exploded ahead of schedule. Enemy wagons will find no crossing tonight. Cheer ripples through streets, faint but building, like dawn chorus after storm. Only then do muscles unclench. This is victory measured in hours, maybe days. But for now, it is enough. You drop into straw, let eyelids close, and dream not of flight or war, but of simple things. The keeper's laugh restored to fullness, the taste of apple soaked in vinegar, and skies where no arrow ever arcs. And that, feather friends, is where our pigeon finally folds its wings. If these 7 flights stirred your heart, smash the like button harder than a falcon stoop. Subscribe so you never miss another midnight journey. And tap a comment below. What trait, speed, stealth, or sheer stubborn hope makes a true messenger? Until the next story lifts on beating wings, tuck in, breathe deep, and may your dreams glide on tailwinds free of nets and storm. Sleep well, night travelers.